Canadians are being taken for fools by Chris George, April 1st, 2024, guys. This is Marcel Irnie with Irnieracing News reporting April 3rd, where the joke is on us, keeps going, and it'll keep going all year. And a year from now, April Fools will continue and go up another 24% because there's no election, thanks to not just Trudeau and his goons, but also the sub-goon category, Jagmeet Singh, who props up this freak of a prime minister and keeps this rodeo going, guys. So let's not forget about the NDP. You are doomed, Jagmeet, and the whole NDP are doomed, hopefully forever. Hopefully your class of political discourse is removed from Canada forever, along with your Trudeau. Let's get into the story, guys. It makes me angry just thinking about it. This April 1st morning, there is no better prank than to have a longshoreman at the port of Vancouver who is putting in week after week loading coal for shipment to China. Needs to stop at a gas station on his way to West Shore terminals to fill his truck at $2.10 a liter. In a country of oil and gas, the pump prices continue to rise each April Fool's Day. Last year, Canadian exports of thermal coal increased to their highest level in almost a decade. In 2022, Canada shipped 18 million tons, and last year this increased to 19.5 million tons of coal shipped from Vancouver and Prince Rupert. China is importing the majority of this coal, and India takes about 15%. Canadian coal exports have doubled since 2015 when Trudeau took power and have risen 20% since the PM promised that all thermal coal exports will stop by 2030. In a country that is intent on making a difference in fighting climate change, Canada fuels China and their coal-powered economy. April Fools! Just a little sidebar. Oh, the irony, guys, the irony. Let's ship all our coal to China and double the amount of coal, yet at the same time we're going to tax Canadians till they are in the streets on meth. The Economist reports that China is the world's leading polluter. Its emissions rose 5% last year. The Chinese industrial sector is dominated by coal-fired factories, and more coal was burned last year as demand for electricity increased. Last year, 47 gigawatts of new coal capacity went into operation, up from 28 gigawatts in 2022. Officials approve an average of two new coal-fired power plants a week. It is a fact that if Canada were to eliminate all of its carbon emissions, then China's coal-belching economy would erase Canadians' gains in a few weeks. Consider that Canadians could do much more for global pollution by simply halting its coal shipment to China, rather than enduring the Liberals' carbon tax that is increasing the cost of everything in the country. Oh, I hear a helicopter, guys. The feds, they're coming. Canadian journalist Peter Menzies, a senior fellow with the Macdonald-Lure Institute, wrote an editorial column for the Epoch Times in which he laments, quote, what we Canadians have become instead of a country with the world's most radical collection of social policies that is mocked mercilessly by international media for its foolish extremism, is taunted for its unwillingness to defend itself, and no longer has any influence to speak of on the international stage. While we once had a voice that was respected, we now have one that's solicites, if anything at all, condescending grins and amusement. Canadians can be forgiving if they do not realize we are a butt of jokes in the global community. Canadians can be forgiven if they do not realize, Editorial comment from international news is heavily censored and not shared by our Canadian government-sponsored newsrooms. So in the name of self-enlightenment, on this mischievous morning by George Journal, we'll provide a few of the insults being hurled, mostly on the PM, but all in our general direction. There was a recent Australian news panel that discussed Justin Trudeau's news conference at the Summit on Democracy, where he gave $8.4 million to study climate change and democratic decline in the Southern Hemisphere. Sky News anchor Rowan Dean says, quote, these people are completely bonkers, end quote, before being interrupted by a panelist who observed of Trudeau, quote, it's climate change, it's misinformation, it's disinformation, it's propaganda, all of these things. They come up with these boogeymen to come up with one result. We have to have free speech to say the things that are approved. We have to have democracy to vote for the approved candidates. It is all about narrowing freedom, narrowing your choices, end quote. Dean signs off the segment by saying, quote, well, that's the comedy hour with Justin Trudeau. It doesn't get any funnier than that, end quote. News anchor Palki Sharma from WION, a global news channel focusing on India, was providing editorial comment on the recently released RCMP report that warned about the deteriorating standard of living in Canada and how it would result in civil unrest. She stated, quote, this is the kind of desperate future that Canada is staring at. Look at what is happening in that country. The economy is in bad shape. People are struggling to make ends meet. Canada's job market has become tighter. A new Gallup poll has found that Canadians under the age of 30 are very unhappy, and among many reasons is the lack of trust in the government. Their future looks darker. Buying a house is the dream of most people, most families, and going forward, they will never be able to fulfill that dream. Mind you, this is of no fault of theirs. Coming between them and their dream of owning a house is Canada's housing crisis. There are not enough houses in the country courtesy of bad policy and bad planning. Are you really surprised that the RCMP is warning of mayhem? The situation in Canada is so dire that the country is forced to cap immigration, which is more bad news for their economy. Apaheo concludes, quote, if worsening of living standards, if the inability to pursue happiness does not impact the government in a democracy, I wonder what else does. People elected Trudeau because he promised a better Canada. What he delivered is appeasement politics, a foreign policy built on conspiracy theories, polarization, and an economy that is making life for Canadians so difficult that they may soon have no choice but to revolt. End quote. The full 4.5-minute commentary can be found here on X.
A secret report has been sent to the Trudeau government by the RCMP, that's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The report basically says that once the people of Canada realize how broke they are, they will start protesting. And this will not be a silent protest. The Canadian Police is referring to a civil unrest, the kind that's capable of changing the status quo or a government. That's the kind of desperate future that Canada is staring at. Just have a look at what's happening in the country. The economy is in a bad shape. People are struggling to make their ends meet. Canada's job market has become tighter. As per the government data, there was a 3.6% decrease in job vacancies in the last quarter of 2023. The number of vacancies fell to 678,500. This is the 6th consecutive quarterly decline.
I just got to pause this, guys, so we don't get copyright. But from more trouble for Trudeau, guys, this is Canada today. Justin Trudeau's Canada.
A Gallup poll has found that Canadians under the age of 30 are very unhappy. And among the many reasons is the lack of trust in the government. The future looks darker. Let me just read out what this police report says.
Yeah, I heard about this report. This was like 2-3 weeks ago. I never did a story on it, but a lot of people did. And an RCMP releases a report saying Canada's on the break of anarchy, of civil unrest, of civil fight, like a civil war. This is wild.
I'm quoting, the coming period of recession will accelerate the decline in living standards that the younger generations have already witnessed compared to the earlier generations. For example, many Canadians under 35 are unlikely ever to be able to buy a place to live. Buying a house is the dream of a lot of people, of a lot of families, and going forward, they may never be able to fulfill that dream.
Absolutely, guys. I gave up on, I didn't even really start that dream, but I guess I dreamed about a huge garage. But it's impossible if you don't have your family passing you down housing, residential, when they pass, you inherit stuff. If you're not inheriting anything, and if you haven't just somehow become rich by running 30 employees doing, carpet cleaning or whatever, there's just no way to afford $1 million+ home. And $1 million home is just the tip of the shitty housing end.
Mind you, this is for no fault of theirs. It is not because those under 30 are not making enough money or not working hard enough or not saving enough for the future. Coming in between them and their dream of owning a house is Canada's housing crisis. There aren't enough houses in the country, courtesy bad policy and bad planning. Whose bad planning, you ask? The people or the government? The latter, of course. In 1987, the federal government decided to get out of housing and leave the issue to the provinces. What followed were years of underbuilt housing. The signs have been around. Did the government decide not to see this? Or did they simply choose to ignore it?
Good question. Good question.
You know, a lot of people emigrate to Canada each year in pursuit of happiness, in pursuit of what they consider a good life. But today...
On that note, they're actually now warning people in India to not go to Canada. They have to get the information to these people. It's like, it is not a place of freedom. Neither is the USA. So like they're telling the people that are considering that this is a better place to go. No, it's not. People are returning back to India.
This very same country is failing to provide something as basic as housing. So are you really surprised that the Canadian Mounted Police is warning of mayhem? The situation in Canada is so dire that the country is being forced to cap immigration, which again is bad news for the economy. The people coming into Canada contribute to the workforce, they add to the GDP. But here you have Canada, which for the first time ever is also restricting temporary foreign workers. Earlier this week, Canadian officials said Ottawa will be reducing the number of temporary residents. Who are temporary residents, you ask? Foreign workers who are in Canada on work permits. International...
Yeah, well, they'll limit that, but at the same time, it's unlimited free-for-all just coming across the border illegally right up through New York into Quebec, guys, and then they won't let us journalists actually go and film it. They'll block it off, and the police will keep you miles away from to see what's actually happening at the border.
Canada aims to reduce the number of temporary residents to 5% of the population. Currently, it's at 6.2%. Starting the 1st of May, Canada will be putting a restriction on the number of work permits being handed out to foreigners. Currently, 30% of a company's workforce can be made of temporary foreign workers. This will now be reduced to 20%. Healthcare and construction will remain exceptions. So that's the direction Canada is heading.
This week, Justin Trudeau was the focus of Dave Rubin, one of America's leading podcasters and conservative commentators. On the Monday episode of The Dave Rubin Show, Rubin called the Canadian PM, quote, a horrible communist who should be in jail, end quote, for his malevolent actions taken against people involved in the Freedom Convoy, specifically those who had their bank accounts frozen. Trudeau was described as, quote, the worst kind of authoritarian leader, end quote. Rubin says of Trudeau, quote, that was only 2 years ago. Do you think they are done with all that? If there was a just society, which there isn't, he would be in jail, end quote. Justin Trudeau and his progressivism, progressivism is often abused in American media, from editorials in the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal to the recent tour of Alberta by Tucker Carlson. The number of podcaster in the United States, the number one, Joe Rogan, has been particularly sharp in referring to the PM now as the, quote, fucking Trudeau, and Canada as that frozen communist shithole, end quote. In a recent Joe Rogan Experience episode with guest Canadian comedian Tom Green, Rogan stated of Trudeau, quote, if he gets elected again, you guys are gluttons for punishment, end quote. He went on to comment, quote, I love Canadians, I just hate their government. Here is a clip of that exchange. Let's take a look. Progressivism. Yeah, what a stupid word, guys.
I want you to come to Canada, Joe. I know you haven't come to Canada, but lately, but you got to come to Canada, because here's the thing. I watch the show all the time, so I know your feelings about Canada. But here's the thing, like, everybody loves you in Canada, So I'm coming down here. Everybody's so stoked that I'm here, and
I love Canadians. I just hate their government.
Mm-hmm.
And something here. How do you say his last name? Polivier.
Yeah, well, it's French, so it's well. I don't think he's French, but the name's French. Pierre Poilievre.
Pierre Poilievre. Yeah, I get it right, Joe Rogan. But yeah, we love Canadians. We hate our government.
Polyev. So sort of a weird R, silent R.
Yeah, it's a strange, as you see it written down, it's very difficult to remember how to say it.
Yeah.
That guy makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
He's so common sense and just calling out all the nonsense that's been done.
Except for the warmongering with Ukraine and sending more people to the slaughter and more money to put more people to the slaughter. That makes no sense, whatever. Warmongering, the military-industrial complex, no, that doesn't make any sense for Polyev. And the fact that Polyev still has not called for the genocide trials of COVIDism, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah, but everything else with the economy and all the general things, sure. I would like to see Joe Rogan invite Maxime Bernier. We need to get some airtime for Maxime Bernier so he can go over all the common sense things for the full tilt, the full tit, guys, not just partial tit, but the full set of boobs in terms of life and what's going on
under this administration. It's just so sad to watch.
So this is the thing that I kind of, I guess, just wanted to throw out there, which is it's not unlike here in the U.S., right? You've got Biden as president now, right? And then you've
senile
got,
Biden,
essentially a Democrat. We actually call our Democrats the liberals, right? That's how unabashed we are liberal up there. We actually call the party the Liberal Party. It's not a bad word up there, right? They actually call them the liberals.
And the other ones are conservatives.
And conservatives, liberals and conservatives. But it's the same thing, like half the country hates the party in power right now, just like as much as anybody.
More, 80%.
And it's just a constant thing, and they want to get him out. And so, it's just, I just want to, as a proud Canadian, want to throw out the distinction that, Canada's, it's like here. It's the same bullshit that's here. Everybody's arguing about issues, important issues. It's being reinforced, through these algorithms. People get mad about it, then they start arguing. But so, I sometimes kind of go, wouldn't it be interesting if Pierre Poilievre won the next election, right?
Well, he's certainly on course to, guys, thanks to the latest poll. It was like freaking a slaughter fest. We'll have to find that later. We can't interrupt this too much, but let's keep going.
Because then all of a sudden we'd have a conservative government up there, and let's say Biden won down here, you got conservative government up there, and then Tucker Carlson might be going up to Canada talking about how great we are all of a sudden, Because it just can switch on a dime,
It could. Yeah. It could go back.
And it has before. Yeah.
And here's a little sidebar in the here. It should come as no surprise that the government is seeking to block Rogan podcasts in this country. Yeah. Trudeau, with his NDP coalition majority in the House of Commons, is passing bills nonstop, censoring the internet. He censored the internet. He censored the news medias. Now we don't even get news on social media like Facebook or Instagram. It's illegal. It's dropped. They won't, if they see your IP addresses in Canada, it's blocked. In a recent Danila Cambone interview, O'Leary spoke to the Trudeau government. Oh yeah, I read this earlier. Quote, look at the per capita of Canada with 37 million people. Editorial. Actually, it's 41 million next month. And editorial. And you look at the natural resources this country has per capita. It is one of the richest countries on earth, run by complete idiots. There is no other way to put it. You might as well tell the truth. It is so important for Justin Trudeau to be thanked for his service and then removed from office. An election is coming in the next 18 months. He is the worst manager that Canada has ever had. Total incompetency in the cabinet beneath him. Total incompetency in almost every mandate. Absolutely the worst I have ever seen. The very, very, very worst. It's like Larry David. It's pretty good, absolute worst. Canadian people are starting to see how horrific this management team is. He's been a widely successful politician, but the derivatives we were talking about speak to the complete incompetency of managing Canada's biggest business in Canada itself. This is a totally incompetent government from the top down, the worst managers in the country history. You can see it. I've seen it. I'll show it again.
Well, Kevin, so nice to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
It's to stop whining because we most likely won't get a cut at all this year, let alone this month. What's your take on the Fed and what they should do?
Well, everybody has to remember the Fed's mandate for inflation is 2%. It's not 2.1%. It's not 2.5. It's not 3. It's 2. And so At the same time, we have a soft landing that is agreed on by almost every economist now, which is very hard to engineer, but somehow that's been achieved. Got to hand it to Powell on that. So he has absolutely no incentive to take any risk whatsoever and cut rates. So all this discussion about 1 or 2 or 3 rates starting in June, I think that's just fantasy. It's not going to happen. And so even the market is starting to adjust to the fact that you can get 5%.
Okay, guys, we're cutting ahead to the part we're looking for. Bear with me.
Run by complete idiots. And there's no resources the country has. Per capita, it's one of the richest countries on earth.
On earth.
Run by complete idiots. And there's no other way to put it. You might as well tell the truth. It's so important that Justin Trudeau be thanked for his service and then removed from office. And an election will be coming in the next 18 months. He is the worst manager Canada has ever had.
Ever seen.
Total incompetency underneath him in the cabinet seats. Total incompetency in almost every mandate.
What he says is like incompetence also below him. There's nobody to run for the Liberals anymore, just like the Democrats in the States. There's no smart person in that party, and they'd probably do that on purpose. They want to complete bunch of morons. It's like watching a freaking cartoon where you have all the idiots underneath the idiot guys. There's nobody to run for the Democrats. There is nobody to run for the Liberals in Canada. There's nobody to step up and who looks smart and might actually gain some votes. So they're stuck running with, nearly dead Joe Biden, incompetent, senile, admitted to being senile. The Supreme Court confirmed he is senile and he can't go to jail or even be held for trial for things he does because he's senile. And then you have the same side of Trudeau where the court found that what he did was absolutely illegal with the Emergency Act, and yet he still remains in power and the RCMP still licks his butt.
Mandate. Absolutely the worst I've ever seen. The very, very, very worst. And I think the Canadian people are starting to see how horrific this management team is. And it's very important. And listen.
All right, well, I read it for you guys. We don't want to get a copyright strike for this video and have it taken down. Let's move on. All right, back to the main story on Substack. With the challenges the country is facing, housing crisis, immigration mismanagement, a sagging economy, inflation, growing debt, collapsed military, foreign interference, national disunity, one wonders how the Trudeau Liberals rationalize their, quote, leadership. Perhaps Oakville MP Pam Damoff gave Canadians a clue on how they judge themselves. At a recent MP's Ethics Committee, the backbench Liberal was commenting on corruption in the federal government, specifically about how the Liberals managed the criminal prosecution of SNC Lavalin during the period when the PMO was pressuring Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould. Damoff told Conservative MPs that if Canadians think Ottawa is corrupt, then they should, quote, take a look at the Afghanistan, end quote. Apparently, the bar has been lowered for Liberals to clear it. Or is Damoff toying with us? Another April Fools. The Trudeau Liberals are content to think that their government is better managed than the regime led by the Taliban. Wow, guys. And this story is going to keep going here for a whole... Oh, no, we're almost over. We'll keep going. Canada has ceased to be a serious country. That is a refrain that is being repeated throughout our media by Terry Glavin, Robert Fief, Andrew Coyne, Tristan Hopper, Brian Lilly, etc. But seriously, what kind of country have we become when MPs give a standing ovation to a Nazi SS war criminal because nobody from the PM on down through his government knew World War II history? Well, Chrystia Freeland was one who did know the history, but then how do you explain her standing and applauding? The government thoroughly embarrassed Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky within the international community. Justin Trudeau followed that up by flubbing his statement in Poland while standing beside Polish PM Donald Tusk at the news conference to underscore allies' support for Ukraine. Trudeau leaned into the mic to forcibly say, quote, because we know that Russia must win this war. Blah. Sorry, I remember this too. Of course, legacy media has buried this episode, and most Canadians have no idea the extent to which a country's leading statesman can make a mockery of the nation. But look, True North media provides the evidence.
In every way we can, because we know that Russia must win this war. That Ukraine must win this war against Russia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I actually also posted that on my channel, but I guess it's hard to find. What kind of country have we become when a state dinner and reception in downtown Toronto for Italian PM Giorgia Meloni had to be cancelled because pro-Hamas protesters occupied the streets in front of the convention hall? What kind of country have we become when we repeatedly turn away international leaders who visit and want to discuss Canadian exports of liquefied natural gas, LNG, because Justin Trudeau does not see a business case for our industry? Last week, it was the visiting PM from Greece. Before that, the leaders of Germany and Japan both came to expressly request a new trade deal for Canadian energy. The best observation, aside from Kevin O'Leary's rant on the Trudeau's government mismanagement of the country, is by Kirk Libimov, a change management executive CEO from Calgary, who offered the following on X. When you look at your bill from fueling up your car, just remember Canada is an energy powerhouse. When you look at your heating and electricity bills, just remember Canada is an energy powerhouse. When you look at your grocery bills, just remember Canada is an agricultural powerhouse. When you look at the housing unaffordability, just remember Canada is the second largest landmass in the world. Oh my God. When communities can't get clean water, just remember Canada is blessed with abundant fresh water. When you look at the falling standard of living, just remember Canada is an industrial powerhouse with everything in this country in high demand. When you look at how much taxes you pay, just remember you could be keeping more of your money and getting more and better services. The potential Canada has is tremendous. We don't need to be the country we are today, and we don't need to be heading in the direction we are heading. We traded prosperity, well-being, and fundamentals for virtue signaling. The By George Journal's final thoughts on this fine April morning is the news revealed by subscription-based, independent-funded BlackRock's reporters news source that the Trudeau government is being warned by their public service bureaucrats that the cabinet needs to devise new strategies, quote, end quote, to restore public trust in the government of Canada. Apparently, there is, quote, a growing evidence, end quote, of mistrust by the public, quote, an erosion of trust in democratic institutions, end quote. Imagine growing distrust in the government that today raises taxes on pump prices and home fuel, even though there has been a vocal outpouring asking for some type of relief from hiking the punitive tax. Trudeau and his Liberal MPs are insistent that they will not adjust their tax on Canadians, even though 7 in 10 Canadians oppose the increase. 8 in 10 Canadian businesses oppose it, and at least 7 of 10 provincial premiers have spoken out against it. What kind of trust can be expected in our democratic institutions and our political leaders when 2 in 3 Canadians say that tax is negatively impacting the cost of living, and majority, 56%, believe their economic concerns should outweigh climate change goals, and Trudeau is deaf to any conversation about the adjusting the Liberal tax? Then there is the thought for the next time we are at the gas pumps that the very day our lives got more expensive with hiked carbon taxes, the Liberal MPs, all MPs, were receiving another pay raise. With this new pay raise increase, Canadian MPs now enjoy the world's second highest salary for elected officials, a salary that is about 4 times the average income of a Canadian. If this Trudeau government were serious about trust, they would not be ruminating new strategies, but rather listening to the Canadians they purposely serve. Yet, as this day of increased taxation is upon us, it is foolish to expect this type of respect from Justin Trudeau or the Liberals. It's April Fools. The joke is on us. Oh, I should probably break that down. There's not been many people talking about their pay raises. It's been pretty silent in the media. And you don't have the conservative Pierre Poilievre. I never heard him talking about the pay raise either. What is going on with Canada, guys? Well, it's very obvious. This is an excellent, thanks to George Journal, guys, Substack here. We'll have to break this down. This is Irnieracing News, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe this stuff, because this won't go in the algorithm. We might be stuck under 1,000 views because of This bills that Trudeau has passed to censor the internet and censor the news in Canada. Good day. Goodbye. Be smart. Stay on the single track.